There's a lot of excitement building with Powerball up to $1.5 billion dollars. That's a big jackpot. It's approaching a record. So I wanted to have a chat with the folks at the Washington Lottery office to see how things are going. And I am fortunate to be joined by Kristi Weeks. She is the Director of Legal Services for Washington's Lottery. Kristi, thanks for joining us. And the first thing I wanted to ask you is, when this excitement starts to build up, I mean, for us, it's what we call a talkie story. It's the thing everybody's kind of talking about. Does that excitement permeate the Washington Lottery office too?
Absolutely. This is fun times for us. We want to see those jackpots get huge because it generates excitement among our players and great ticket sales, which is more revenue for our beneficiaries.
And that's something else I definitely want to talk about too. But the other thing I was thinking about it, and I don't know if anything changes, but when these prizes, and again, they're multi-state prizes, so Washington State certainly has a role, but not necessarily the lead role. But when it reaches a certain point, do the protocols sort of change in the office, or does it just stay business as usual and the number keeps growing?
Business as usual, and the number keeps rolling.
Oh, that's great. And I know you can't necessarily predict, but and please correct me if I'm wrong, but as more tickets are sold, the prize begins to increase based on ticket sales as well, right?
That's absolutely correct. So when we say $1.5 billion today, that's our best estimate based on what we think sales will be. By the time there's actually the drawing that takes place on Saturday, sales could have exceeded our estimates and the actual price could be much higher.
Well, I'm going to ask you to put on your crystal ball. And again, I know you can't necessarily predict, but what's the sense? Because it's so close to the record, it's sitting right now
Mhm.
very close in third place. What's the sense that because it's this big and more tickets are going to be sold, that it might actually crack that record by Saturday?
If I had to guess, I'd say close, but probably not. Lotteries are very good at estimating sales because we have history. We've had tickets worth over $1 billion before. So we tend to be pretty close, and it would have to be a significantly higher sales than what we were expecting for it to make the number one jackpot on this roll. But if it doesn't get hit on Saturday, it will absolutely be the highest jackpot ever on the next drawing.
I almost want it to roll over one more time when you say something like that, because I'm one too who likes to see a record broken, like when the fellas were breaking the home run records in baseball and that sort of thing. That generates a lot of excitement too. Now, we talked about ticket sales. When it gets to be at a certain point and then up to this level, what does the Washington Lottery see in terms of like that ticket sale graph?
Mhm. Well, I can tell you normally on a given day, we might sell between 2.4 and $2.5 million in tickets total, all of our games. Yesterday, we sold $7.2 million in tickets, and 4.6 million of that was just Powerball. So that was almost $5 million more than just your average day. And as the jackpot grows, our sales will grow. And as I said before, that's great for our beneficiaries and the programs we support.
And you just dovetailed right into my next question, because if memory serves, the schools benefit, but tell us about that, because it being a multi-state lottery, I would imagine a lot of the proceeds don't necessarily go to Washington State, but there still are some. Can you sort of run down how that works and where this money goes to these beneficiaries?
Sure. So in Washington, even though multiple states, 45 states and some other territories and jurisdictions sell Powerball, we get the proceeds from the sales in our state. And about 18% of every dollar sold in Washington goes to education. Now, it's a common misconception. It's not schools, but it's education. So we provide money for college scholarships and grants. We also provide money for early childhood education and assistance programs. So in fiscal year 21, we paid to send 18,000 people to college. And most of those people don't even know where the money comes from. But that was 18,000 people who went to college in fiscal year 21 because of lottery proceeds. We also provided 25% of the total budget for the early childhood education and assistance program, which serves 3 to 5-year-olds, sends them to preschool, gets them ready for a good learning experience when they do start kindergarten.
So, what do some of the people involved in these programs say about how much help that is to them? Like, I'm sure they're grateful and appreciative, but I imagine it probably, makes a big dent and lets them do a lot more than they would have without this money.
Well, absolutely. As I said, 25% of the early childhood education program funds. So, without this funding, that'd be 25% less kids that they could serve. But most people don't know that the lottery supports college grants and scholarships or early childhood educations or other programs. They think it goes to K through 12, and then they wonder why their taxes are going up. But we actually don't support K through 12, and our $186 million that went to educational programs in fiscal year 21 wouldn't make a dent in K through 12 funding. But we like to get our story out. We like to tell where the money goes and who it benefits. And it's not just education. Almost 2/3 go back to the players in the form of prizes. We want to keep them excited so they'll play more. 5% goes back to the retailers who sell the tickets. So for a mom and pop, little convenience store on the corner, for every $1 that they sell in lottery products, they get 5 cents. And that adds up and is a good source of revenue for them. And then we also, help pay for the Seahawks Stadium and other important programs. And we do it quietly, and most people don't even know we're there.
Well, we know you're there when we see that there's not enough digits on the sign outside of the gas station there.
You're muted.
Looks like I muted myself there. Sorry about that. Yeah, but there's the number rolls over. We need to get new signs with these prizes getting so much bigger.
We have ordered new signs. So you will, in some places, see signs that allow for billion-dollar jackpots, but they're expensive. So we're rolling them out, the new ones, as the old ones are disregarded. But yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Yes, and you brought up another good point about the retailers. Let's say the guy right up the corner from me where I buy my tickets it sells me the winner. What does that retailer get?
$50,000.
Wow, that's not a bad chunk of change there. And of course, if I don't go over and give him a little tip to boot for selling me the winner, I'm doing something wrong there, but that's great. Um, so the other thing I wanted to ask you too is, let's say somebody here in Washington wins. What do they need to do next?
The first thing everyone should do, even before they know they've won, is sign the back of their ticket. An unsigned ticket is like cash. It belongs to whoever has possession of it. So sign your ticket, then put it somewhere safe and dry. And then just take a deep breath. You've got 180 days to claim your prize from the date of the drawing, so you don't have to make any big decisions right away. Contact a lawyer, contact an accountant, contact someone who knows a lot about taxes. Get your affairs in order. Figure out what you want to do. Do you want to take the annuity so you get the full $1.5 billion over the course of 30 years? Or do you want to take the cash value, which is about 50%, and just get that money up front? Do you want to claim as an individual or as a business? These are things that your advisors can tell you. You don't have to make these decisions right away. So sign your ticket, keep it safe, do your planning, and just make sure you come visit us within that 180 days.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I definitely wanted to ask you about is the actual claiming of the prize. What does somebody need to do once they're ready for that step?
Yeah. Well, for a prize over $100 million, which is obviously what we're talking about, you do have to come to the lottery office in Olympia, because there's some extra steps that have to happen. So we advise you to call us, make an appointment to come in, and we will be ready for you. And you have to fill out some paperwork. You have to have made those decisions about the annuity versus the cash value, and you will walk away a billionaire.
Amazing. When I do it, I'm going to be coming down in a limo and probably shooting champagne out of both windows. Or I'm going to do it very quietly. And that brings up another good question. What's the rule in Washington? Can a winner remain anonymous?
A winner cannot remain anonymous in Washington. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do media and press. You can certainly decline to do all that. I mean, we want to share the news with the world, but if the winner doesn't want to, they don't have to. However, if we get a request for a public record, which would be the winner's information, we would have to give out their name, the city or town where they reside, how much they won, the game they played, and where they purchased the ticket. Those are the mandatory elements. Only about 10 or 11 states now allow anonymity, and Washington law has not been changed to allow that.
Well, we're also talking about essentially publicly funded operation. So in my job, we do Freedom of Information Act stuff all the time. So the legal requirements certainly understandable. I know in my case, obviously, Northwest News Radio is getting an exclusive. I'm not talking to anybody else. Might talk to my friends at Como TV, maybe that'll be okay. But yeah, otherwise the rest of them, I'm gonna shine them on. I say that now, but I know so many people from so many different places. If I was to win, that would be the thing there.
But Ryan,
Yes.
you brought up something that it's just a perfect segue. Look how much time you have spent thinking about what you will do when you win. And that's really what the $2 price of the ticket is all about. Yes, somebody's going to win this eventually, and I'm happy for them. But not everybody can win, and the odds are steep. But what you've purchased with your $2 is the fun that you are having right now, thinking about what you would do when you won. How would your life change, and what could you do for your friends, your family, your community? That's the true fun of the lottery. It's just supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I'm one of those guys that goes, yeah, I'd like to give a little cash out here and there to friends. But I've always thought that if I was that one guy to win it, or yeah, they oftentimes when it gets this big, two or three people get the prize and end up splitting it. I would want to encourage people to take some of what I give them and donate it because I plan to do the same. So,
Mhm.
I would hope to be able to pay that forward. And before we started, we were talking about I'm one of those guys who waits until like I start looking when it gets at about 200 million, and when it gets closer to 300 million, I jump in. Then I stick with it until somebody wins it, and then I'm out for a while until it grows, which is different from a regular player. Do you see a lot of guys like me?
Actually, we do see a lot of guys like you. A lot of people wait until the magic number seems to be about 400 million. And I don't understand that. Now, of course, I can't play the lottery, but if I could, I would be interested in it every day, because the base jackpot, the lowest jackpot you could win for Mega Millions or Powerball is $20 million. Ooh, only $20 million. But if you take that as an annuity, so you're getting paid for 30 years after taxes, you're going to receive about, give or take, $500,000 a year for 30 years. I would love that. That's not chump change. That's not peanuts. So we really encourage people to look beyond the $1 billion jackpot. And if you really want to change your life, you can play every day and get a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you also bring up another good point. It is 30 years for the annuity, right?
Yes, 30
Okay.
payments.
Okay. I haven't done the math yet. Do we know a rough idea at this particular jackpot what that is before taxes? Get out your adding machine, Kristi.
Oh no, I went to law school because there was no math on the test, but
There you go.
somebody else did do that math for me. Let me just find that. Okay, so in Washington, if you took it would be about 756 million, and then you'd have to take out 24% for federal taxes. Nah, I can't do that math, but it's a lot of money. And we're really lucky here in Washington because we don't have a state income tax. So you do have to pay the 24% federal income tax because federal government's going to get their money. But unlike other states, you're not paying an additional 3, 4, 5% for state income tax.
Okay. So then have we figured out how much the annual payments would be?
I have not.
I will do the math on that. I'm not going to put you on the spot there. I mean,
Well,
because
and then,
it's really, 1.5 billion divided by 30 minus 24%, essentially. Simple math, right?
yes and no. It gets a little complicated because the 30 payments are graduated. So every year you get 5% more. So you don't get the exact same amount every year.
Well, then that brings up another question I hadn't thought of. Let's say somebody opts for the payments, and they go down to Olympia. Do they walk out the door that day with their first check?
Yes.
Wow,
You get a check
amazing.
the first day.
And now, do I? I'm one who I want the big oversized novelty check. Can I get one of those too?
Those are mostly only for show, but for this jackpot, yeah, I bet we could put together the big check.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to need to take some publicity photos with that, right? For the lottery.
If the winner allows, yes.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Kristi, what haven't I thought of that we as players or as a state should be thinking about at this point?
You have covered almost everything. You let me talk about our wonderful beneficiaries. You let me talk about how the community is served and how, the money that goes into the lottery really does make actual difference for real people in Washington. So we've talked about when you win, whether you can be private or anonymous or not. So I think we've covered almost everything.
Well, and you nailed it. I've put a lot of thought into this over the years, so I knew exactly what to ask. I appreciate that. Kristi Weeks, the Director of Legal Services for Washington's Lottery. Thank you, Kristi.
You're very welcome.